Well, hi everyone. I'm Lisa, and I am really excited to be joining you live right now. And in just a minute, we're going to have my counselor, Jim Cress, joining us. I think we've got Jim now, so let's get him on here. So as soon as Jim pushes the button to join us, he'll be right here with us. And let me tell you a little bit about Jim while he's connecting. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Lisa, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us
Yeah.
where you are joining us from. What is your background?
This is the prayer room of my wife. We got this house 15 years ago. There's a prayer room that looks out over this way. There's about 14 deer that will come up. My yard, dogs could bark. So it's up here. This has become my makeshift office as I'm doing all virtual counseling now. I'm surrounded by incredible books and pictures and things like that. So it's a very serene place with a nice view out that way. That's where I am right now.
That's great. Well, I am currently in my bedroom because the rest of the house has different activities going on. I have a couple of kids making Rice Krispie treats.
Oh,
I have my husband is also on, I think, a Zoom call with his team. And so I tried to find, it was either this or the bathroom. So I figured the bedroom was better than the bathroom.
the bathroom is not good for acoustics. It's rather echoey. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And yeah, and the bathroom is never good to take a screen into the bathroom. I think plenty of us have seen the reason that is on the Zoom call that went around that someone didn't realize their whole team could see them going to the bathroom. So then there's that. So
That's been
so
happening. I'm glad to be here. I'm calling you. I thought today I'm going to dub you the OG of IG.
oh really?
The
Okay.
OG, the original, what's that? The original gangster the kids talk about. He's the OG, and you're the OG of IG. You're as good as it gets. That's me trying to be hip at age 57.
Well, Jim, you're more hip than me because I don't even know what OG stands for. I've heard my kids throw that around. I just thought it meant original. I didn't know
It
it was
is. It's the
original
original
gangster.
gangster. So people just use it now. The OG. So you're the OG of
Okay.
IG. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There
Well,
you
there
go.
you have it.
Okay. Sure.
Well, I am so grateful to be having this conversation with you today because I think so many of us are in a shelter in place city where we're
Mm-hmm.
living. I know we're there with the counties that we live in. I know, Jim, I think you're in Mecklenburg County,
I am.
right?
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Union County, but part of the greater Charlotte, North Carolina area. But the reason we're in two different places today is because we are under a shelter in place order, which a lot of people are. And
Right.
family togetherness is something we have more of right now than ever before. Family togetherness is awesome until it is no longer awesome. And so today I thought it would be great to spend a little time with you, my family counselor. Now, Jim, you've got a lot of credentials, and I'm not even going to attempt it. So I'm going to let you do your own introduction and tell us your credentials. But the main credential with me is that you are my personal counselor, and I'm so grateful for that. But go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your educational
Sure.
background.
For fun, because it's true, my undergrad degree, as is my wife's, is in church music. We were worship leaders in churches, so vocal performance, and she was the fine pianist and still is. So a bachelor's in church music. I have a master's from Dallas Seminary, and then a master's in professional and biblical counseling from Colorado Christian University, where I studied under Dr. Larry Crabb. And I'm a licensed professional counselor. I do a lot of work around, as we've talked about on the Therapy and Theology podcast. I'm a certified sex addiction therapist and a certified partner trauma therapist. We use the word partner for women, especially, and men too, but who've been betrayed by someone in infidelity. And that's that's not all the work that I do, but I love, ordained as a pastor in 1994, and that's my heart. In my office, I have different diplomas, which, they're just up there on the wall, but in the center of it is my orange from Schofield Memorial Church in Dallas, Texas, ordination certificate, because that's my heart, is pastoring and shepherding people. I am pastoring people, even though I do it through professional counseling. That's pretty much it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Jim. You've been a tremendous help to me. I know a lot of you that follow me on Instagram. Most of you know my story that the past 4 to 5 years of my family have been really, really hard. And my husband was unfaithful, and Jim was very, very helpful in navigating that partner trauma that I went through. And I'm so grateful for the healing. But counseling is not just for the hard and horrific things that we go through in life.
True.
It also helps us navigate some everyday realities and family dysfunction that we all have. And here's the thing. If we were gathered in a big group today, I could pass the microphone around and we could all share our family dysfunction. You
True.
have your dysfunction. We have our dysfunction.
All God's children have a little dysfunction.
Everybody has a little dysfunction, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And if we got to you and you said, no, I have no family dysfunction, I would be like, you might be the family dysfunction. So keep on passing the mic, right?
Right. Or check for the pulse. Yeah.
It's and not only do we have it in modern day, but it's also in the Bible. When I look at Genesis chapter 37, the story of Joseph and the father Jacob, that story, it starts off in Genesis 37 saying, this is the account of Jacob's family line. And right off the bat, one of the first things we find about this family is Joseph telling on his older brothers. And we quickly find out that the brothers have extreme animosity. The father favors Joseph over the rest of his brothers. And the dysfunction goes on and on and on. And this is a family that is really crucial in the Bible, because Jacob really provides the family line for the 12 tribes of Israel that emerge, right? And
that's right.
So it encourages me that even in the Bible is not shy about telling us that there is family dysfunction. And I think during a time of COVID-19, there's going to be things that emerge because we're sheltering all together. And we're seeing things that busyness sometimes helps us excuse or cover over. And when you and I were talking this week, because you're my counselor, so I have certainly brought my fair share of sheltering in place chaos that I want you to help me think through and help me navigate. You said something to me that was very interesting. You said, Lysa, in times like this, it's like when you drain a lake and suddenly all the stuff that has always been there, hidden by the water that's at the bottom, when you drain a lake, you're forced to see what's really there. And I think this time of COVID-19 is forcing some families to see what's really there. And that can be hard. And so I wanted to spend a few minutes giving some good counseling advice to families that are experiencing a lot of togetherness, but sometimes the togetherness doesn't feel wonderful. So what do we do? And so I don't know if you have any comments that you want to kick our conversation off with, but I'm going to let you go ahead and do that.
Yeah, thanks, Lysa. I would, as you and I talked earlier this week, just about Proverbs 20, verse 5, the purposes, this lake mentality. We've heard about draining the swamp. That's not a political statement, folks. It's like, but it's that idea. And so the purposes in a person's heart are deep waters. So a person of understanding goes down deep to draw them out. God's word, alluding to their stuff that we're just not seeing. It's stuff that's deeper. And COVID-19 has lowered the water in the lake. And it's like some people think, I'm staying quite busy, thank you, God, through this time and counseling virtually. And people are like, there's something new. There's really not necessarily something new here. It's just now we can see it. It's coming, the water's down and the stuff that's there. So one of the blessings of a COVID-19 is for people to use some of this time to say, well, let's explore it, because COVID-19 has lowered the water in the lake. So that part, and then whatever you see there, basically is what what you don't work out, you'll act out. So often if we can't work out or work through some of these issues that are probably long standing, don't be surprised when we start acting them out toward each other. And after all, many of our adult relationships are family reunions. We're bumping up against our family of origin stuff all the time, and suddenly my wife's wearing my dad's face, or I'm wearing somebody else's face for her. And it's like, well, who am I? If it's hysterical right now, it's often historical. So that's a place to realize, plus the Bible telling us the sins of the fathers, I reckon the mothers, are visited on the third and fourth generations. So there's stuff we don't even see that's going on, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so glad that you brought up, if it's hysterical, it's often historical.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that I really love, that you have all these sayings that I can grab in our counseling sessions and preach them back to myself. And so I'm glad you just used that one, because I want to encourage everyone listening to us today to grab some paper and a pen, or even your computer or whatever you have. And I want you to take notes, because I really think we're going to share some things today that are going to be very helpful tools that you're going to want to write down. I know that I write down a lot of what you say, and then it appears in the next book that I write. And of course, I always give you credit for it, but
That's very kind.
this information is so incredibly helpful. So there are a couple of things that I see emerging right now, and that is increased contact with family members means increased conflict with family members.
That's good. Right? Yeah.
And so help us with some better ways to have conflict, because here's what happens to me. I'm just going to be brutally honest. And that is, I can have good reactions until all of a sudden I feel like I'm pushed just that much too far. And then something happens, and I'm sure you know all the technology or all the terminology in my brain. Maybe I get kicked into my, is it limbic system?
Yeah, the lower part of bottom two parts of the brain, the limbic system, right?
Where it's fight, flight, freeze, and then of course I always add in freak out.
Yes.
But something happens and I get kicked into that mode, and all of a sudden I don't feel like I'm equipped to handle conflict the way that I want to. It's like my heart really wants to handle this well, but there is something in my brain, or maybe even in my Italian bloodline, that I just want to come out swinging. I want to prove how right I am. I want to go back into my past and find pain from my past. And I want to weaponize that pain from my past onto the person. And I just want them to see what I see. And I feel like if they would just see what I see, then they would agree with me and we wouldn't have this conflict. But we all know that that doesn't work very well, that technique I just described.
Well, and it's an attempt, Lysa, for forced compassion, and I get it, I relate to it, or forced empathy. You're going to see, I will go into my past or any arsenal I have to weaponize, and you are going to see what's going on right now, when the scripture itself says, often having eyes to see, they don't see, and having ears to hear, they don't hear, if I may borrow from that. So I think it makes sense logically. I'm going to try to force some empathy here, and I don't think empathy can be forced.
Or
to get the other person.
I mean, I want to force cooperation. Right?
Yes, that's right.
Or I want to force you to agree with me. So yeah, force compassion, force cooperation, whatever. I'm laughing right now, Jim, because I didn't even realize this, but I have my coffee mug. I'm just going to let you see. Can you see what it says?
It's going to be backwards on the screen because it's a Yeti.
Okay,
I'm
so let me read it. It says, "Mom's mug. I love you, but don't mess with my mug."
I love it. Yeah.
Talk about forced cooperation, right?
Yeah, and see, I'm much more spiritual. My water bottle says, "Bring the joy." It's backwards, but that says, "Bring the joy."
Okay, so you get the gold star.
Yeah.
And Raquel, thank you for telling me that my hair and makeup look nice. This might be one of the first times I've worn makeup in this 21-day sheltering in place that we've been in. And I actually did wash and curl my hair today for all of you, because last night I did an Instagram live with, or actually a Zoom call with Taylor Madu, and I tried to put my hair up in a top knot because it had been so long since I washed it, and I was a fashion disaster. So today I decided I did all of this just for you guys, but let's
Wow.
get back to our.
Meanwhile, back to the program. Yes.
Back to the program, back to our regularly scheduled program. All right, so let's talk about conflict, because you have something that I think is incredibly helpful, and that is, number one, you have the answer to the number one thing couples fight about. So this is really good information that I want you to unpack. And number two, you have a fight contract that I think you renamed to healthy conflict contract or something like that.
Healthy conversations contract. Yeah, that's right.
Healthy conversations contract. But Jim, will you please tell us the number one thing that couples fight about? Because the answer to this question shocked me.
It is true. And so down here, right here, see right there, somewhere down there in the comments, everybody start typing in, what do you think the number one thing that not just marriages, all of us in relationships, what do we have conflict over? What do we fight over? See if you can guess it. While you're doing it, I will go ahead and tell you. Dr. John Gottman's the lead marital researcher.
Before you do that, I want to read some things. Most people are saying money. Money. Oh, yeah. I'm seeing all these answers.
Money.
Yes. And Joel Mudamale said, your hair looks fabulous today, Jim. He did not want you to feel left out.
Joel, thank you. I knew I could count on Joel.
Yes. Shelly Giglio said control. You're closer than money. Let's see. Brenda just said communication. A lot of people are saying money, communication, time on social media, validation, distrust, all of those things. Kids, yes, all of those things are definitely things that cause conflict. But what's the number one thing, Jim?
Well, I don't have a prize to give, but I think Shelly would be, she's going to be closest in the idea of control, because when it's going on, I am definitely trying to control something. Dr. John Gottman, lead marital researcher, found in all of his research, the number one thing we fight over is nothing at all. So if you're fighting about money, and I've seen that for years in life and in therapy, if in discipleship, if you're fighting about money, it's not about money. If you're fighting about sex, it's not about sex. If you're fighting about in-laws, go right down the top big ones. It's not about that. It's about nothing at all. So what we're in conflict with, you used it earlier about reaching back to weaponize. I've got something going on right now, and maybe I feel out of control, or you're not helping me feel safe by engaging me. You don't feel safe. I think you're blowing me off and wanting to watch something on TV. So things are not in control right now. So the number one thing I fight over is nothing at all. It's not about the main thing. Now, it is some. Let's not be ridiculous. It is some about that, but it's about nothing at all. So we're just fighting over control. It's like very sibling-esque, right? I think a lot of that's going on in COVID-19 is there's a lot of sibling stuff that I had this epiphany this week. I think I shared with you. I imagine in my counseling office, you've acknowledged you've been in, that if my whole family came down there, and I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, I love being around people, but if they came down and parked it for a month in my office, as much as I like people coming in there, and lived with me night and day in my office, that would be problematic. So many of us have come home and we're kind of living in somebody's office the whole time. So yeah, nothing at all. It's about other things, something deeper. So.
Okay, so I don't want to make this about a counseling session for me, although this is really awesome because I feel like I'm getting free counseling. Usually when we have counseling sessions, I have to swipe my credit card. But right now, I'm going to take advantage of this, okay?
Please.
So here's what happens with me. I agree with you, by the way, that we fight over nothing at all. Now, something is usually, I put something front and center to make it about that. Right. But usually, I don't really attribute what I'm most upset about to the issue I place front and center. Mm-hmm. The issue front and center happens to be a convenient avenue through which I can hopefully get to what's really bothering me. But what's really bothering me is usually not what I've stirred up this conflict about.
By the way,
Lise, anybody else finds that.
Well, what we say is, comment down below if you guys find that. What we say in the counseling, this is kind of counseling 101, is We call it the presenting problem. What you come in the office to say, hey, I'm struggling with blank. The presenting problem is seldom the real problem. So I call it it's a dashboard of your life, and it's simply a check engine light comes on. That light is not the problem. Matter of fact, I learned you could take don't do this at home, folks. You could take the positive battery terminal off your car battery when it's running, and it'll reset temporarily the check engine light. Have I fixed it? No. I could put electrical tape over it. So the check engine light says go below, go like Proverbs 20 verse 5. There's something else going on here. It's just the check engine light, and we're fighting over this check engine light like that's not even the issue.
Yeah. And so also, Jim, and I'm a 9 on the Enneagram, but I have a very strong wing 8. And I have this other issue, and that is that I can't always decide very quickly what exactly I'm feeling. So it takes me a minute. Like, am I mad about this? Am I sad about this? Am I angry about this? Am I disturbed about this? What is this real feeling? Like someone just said rejection. Yeah. I mean, is this rejection? Is it really me trying to control something? And so it takes me a minute trying to figure out what I'm even feeling. And if I come out of the gate and I try to jump into a conflict too quick, I will dig myself into a hole that I very majorly regret later, because I realized, oh, wait, not only did I not really address the real issue that upset me, I might be attributing this feeling to my husband when really it's one of my kids that upset me. Or
that's displaced anger.
Really, say that again?
That is displaced anger. That is where there is a transference that goes on. It's old counseling language, but it's practical. And that is, I'm mad at this person, and for some reason, I don't know if I can give my anger, or they're just not around. So I take the anger, it's displaced, and I transfer it over to a more convenient or accessible target. It's done all the time. Like, wow, methinks thou dost protest too much. I mean, I know I may have stepped on your toe, but this is about me right now till it's not about me. What is this about? As someone's transferring some of their stuff on it. That's quite common, done all the time. Not healthy, but done all the time.
Well, isn't it interesting? And the Bible teaches us to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. I feel like even if I could just apply that principle, that in and of itself would give me the counsel that I need to really have better conflict. But Jim, I love that you have a fight contract.
Yeah.
And so I want you, and again, if you don't have your notepad out, everyone who's listening in, I really want you to take notes on this. But Jim, tell us, what are some better ways to have healthier conflicts?
So let me start, and we talked about this before. If I can, we'll quote Dr. Gottman again. Dr. Gottman, the lead marital researcher, this goes to all relationships. Don't just think marriage, and God bless any person that's single out here. It doesn't matter. You can have a party and a conflict with yourself, right? He talked about, well, you can. I'm fighting with myself. Nobody's even around right now. He talked about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and we're rather in apocalyptic times right now. So he talked about these 4 horsemen to watch out for in any relationship, especially in marriage. One is criticism. Well, there's really no constructive criticism. Can I edifyingly build you up as I tear you down? Think about the terms, because our words frame our reality, right? Our words frame our reality. So he said the criticism is anything where I'm doing to cut you down, critique you. Sometimes it can be, it doesn't have to be words. So watch out for criticism. And in that, I'd like to put down that none of us are wired for unsolicited advice. Here's where that is different.
Can you say that louder for the people in the back, please?
Yes, please. Hello. No one, including anyone in Lisa's room listening right now, or her neighbors. No one's we're not wired for unsolicited advice. Here's the difference. People have come into my office. Lisa, I know myriads of people with you say, Lisa, you could say anything you want. Contractually, they bought in and said, you've got a free pass, like people at an event. I've had it many times, an all access pass backstage with all my broadcasting years and all I've done. And I can go anywhere, all access. I have some friends, they have an all access pass to me where they say I think of my dear friend, Bill Loki. from on-site, and you know Bill, and he's got all access pass to me. If he wants to say anything to me, he can. He's very wise how he does it. Other than that, we're not wired for unsolicited advice, including with our parents. That was a Freudian slip, including with our spouses. So that can be to say, honey, there's something, or friend, there's something I want to talk about now. Is now a good time? Jim's line I use a lot. Friends of mine, our family uses it. Do you have it to give? Do you have it to give to have this conversation right now? And then if I want to say something that's troubling me, I've kind of set the table, as the Bible says in Proverbs, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. So I've said, may I speak to you? Then I can say something that could be, quote, critical, but it won't come across usually because that person has bought it and said, yes, you may now speak. Horseman number 1, criticism. Horseman number 2, quickly, is
okay,
defensive.
wait, before you go on to number
yes,
2,
please.
Jim, I like what you're saying here, because instead, I think one of the mistakes that I make sometimes in conflict is I just come out swinging. Like, yeah. This has really upset me. Or, why in the world do you always do this? Or, I cannot believe that this just happened again.
See, that's now into contempt. We'll get there in a moment. I want to mark it. Okay. When we get to contempt, you went to contempt. What, you idiot? I mean, what are you doing? Nobody, all men.
Okay, I try not to take it that far, Jim. But I'm just saying, I like to. But what I hear you saying right now is instead of coming out swinging,
that's fight. That's a fight in trauma response, though.
Okay, so all right. So instead of coming out swinging at the person or the problem, right. I need to on-ramp the discussion. And I like what you said, that on-ramping the discussion is, hey, I have something I'd love to talk about. Is now a good time? Do you have it to give for us to have a conversation? So,
because all it takes, by the way, is blood sugar levels being low. Believe it or not, we have research on this. That couples are fighting and nothing's going on right now but blood sugar levels. Meaning I can't be in my best self, or late at night, like my brain's off duty at 8 o'clock at night, or I can't think of anything before 10 a.m. in the morning and 5 cups of coffee. And we're landing conversations that aren't really being invited to, they're being demanded to. Relational claustrophobia. We're talking now, like, no, you're talking now. I don't have the bandwidth to show up right now. And yet we talk.
I've often told my kids, this is not good theology, but this is very appropriate to train them with my personality. And that is, I feel like the Holy Spirit leaves my body about 9 p.m. every night. And so I've often wanted to hang a little sign on my door. Like, if mom is hungry or mom is tired, that is not the time to have a discussion or an admission, a confession. That's never going to go well, right?
You could be really biblical there and just hang the sign out there, Ichabod, the glory hath departed, or the spirit hath departed. I mean, maybe you could come up with a sign. I like that. I'm going to borrow that.
Okay, perfect. All right, so the 4 horsemen of apocalypse when it comes to
relationships.
Conversation.
All right,
so we covered the first one, conflict. Now,
that's criticism.
I mean,
the first one's criticism,
yep. Okay,
where I'm criticizing. Okay, second one is going to be defensiveness. So again, I'm in that defensive posture, which is a fight posture. Someone says something and I get what I get furious, not curious. Stephen Covey stole this from St. Francis of Assisi, but St. Francis said that Covey borrowed, seek first to understand before you're understood. So someone comes out and says, hey, I maybe they do it right and say, is now a good time? I'd like to share something. Here it is. And someone says in their defensiveness, yeah, but you do the same thing. Quid pro quo. Well, what about you? And I'm not even engaging you. Or the dangerous one is what we call the yes, but. Because the brain hears, yes, I think sometimes, honey, you do this, or friend, you're doing this. And you say, yes, oh, you agree, but. And everything before the but, somebody type this down here. I'm kidding, but this is a quote I like. Everything before the but is male bovine manure. You ever been around cows? So it's that, because the brain is wired when that happens, it'll flip, and now people start telling the truth often after the but. Well, but listen, they're going to start telling the truth. There's a place, grammar teachers, for the word but. I get that. So that part in defensiveness, you share something and I get defended. I'm not engaging you. I'm over here defending me. That's defensiveness. The third one, and if you
Okay,
need to
so we've
comment,
got criticism,
defensiveness.
defensiveness.
Third one, which I think is, for me, I think is the worst. Gottman said the fourth one's the worst one. The third one is contempt. What are you thinking? And it may not be. I kind of did hyperbole and exaggerated it, but to be like, what were you thinking? Or you always, or you never, or nobody thinks like that. What you can hear this scowl. So the contempt is, which contempt is shame. You've heard self-contempt. I have contempt of myself, or contempt toward you. Brene Brown says, if I blame you, like with contempt, blame is an attempt. It's an attempted antidote to pain. But when I blame, I'm attempting to discharge my own pain and discomfort. Blame is an attempt to discharge pain and discomfort. So that contempt is just the scowl, this sarcasm. We both know the word for flesh in the Greek is sarx. So sarcasm is really just tearing the flesh. Sarcasm's not innocent. We play with it a little bit, but in relationships, that's the sniper behind the grassy knoll. Passive aggressive. I'll use sarcasm to get you. So that's the one called contempt. So with contempt, watch out for that. Contempt equals shame. You're shaming in your language. So
all right, and now what's number 4?
The last one's been said is the most powerful one, and I can understand why. Like right now in COVID-19, domestic violence rates are really high. There's all kinds of, like my friend Leslie Vernick and others who talk about verbally destructive words and relationships. So stonewalling is number 4. And that is, peace out. I just check out. You don't know where I go. I disappear. I go up to bed without saying a peep. I hide. I lay there, roll over to, backs to each other. Or just a friend who ghosts you. They're not calling. You responded. You text, and they don't. So stonewalling is, I will go back, and I will not even. And it's really in a domestic violence kind of way if you look at it. It's, I will shut you out. You won't even exist. We're wired to feel like I exist.
Okay, so let me ask you, Jim, because I really need some clarification on this number 4. This stonewalling thing, because sometimes I pull inside of myself and I get quiet because I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to criticize. I don't want to get defensive. I don't want to shame or put on display contempt for this other person. And so I sometimes feel like stonewalling is better. So I really want to understand this. So when I stonewall, is that me getting quiet or me being just, because that, like Art might say, like, what's wrong? And a classic female answer is nothing, like nothing. But I promise you, when I say nothing, that means a whole lot of something. I just don't know exactly how to verbalize it quite.
Yeah, but a classic male response, since I get to speak for the men, is, we ain't believing you. We know when you say nothing, there's something. So what you're doing there, though, I would not mistake stonewalling for self-care, which is, there's 2 things, and it ties into this, 2 things that will really harm a relationship bad. Unfulfilled expectations. This has got a part 1 and part 2. In our relationship, I expect this, not in some unhealthy way. I expect this needs to happen in our relationship, and I expect this better never happen in a relationship. The tighter the relationship, like a marriage, the more severe, the more strict the rules need to be. Because the more tighter, versus we're friends, like concentric circles, and we're acquaintances, but we're better friends, kind of our small group, and we're best friends. We're married. The tighter the relationship, the more pronounced and strict, so to speak, the rules ought to be. So with that, 2 things: unfulfilled expectations. The second one's undelivered communications. I'm thinking stuff over here. You ought to see the text that I am drafting, the emails, and they're all in an inbox. And what's going to happen is, remember when you went to onsite? Can I say that?
Yes.
Remember having your phone off for a week? And these people do that at onsite. They come on and then they open their phone. And some of you have done that. Haven't had your phone on for a while. You open it up and it's like, all these texts come in. That's what happens when I stuff stuff down like a beach ball. It's going to come up like a grenade, not a beach ball. So what happens is I'm thinking all these thoughts. Yeah, I'm thinking all these thoughts. And then I don't say, Lisa, you can say to Art or whoever else, hey, babe, I am having a hard time right now. And I need some space. Telegraph your moves. For you sports fans, a quarterback doesn't want to look and say, here's where I'm throwing the ball. He pump fakes. Be a bad quarterback and say, I'm in even a hard space with you right now. I'm not rejecting you. I need to go to bed, or I need some space over here. During this time, tell a little bit. I'll probably pray, read. I'm going to phone a friend. I want to come back. For in a relationship, every relationship you have, let me use my 3x5, right? For every rip, there needs to be a repair.
Gosh, that is
For
so
every,
good.
if you don't, you keep ripping, not repairing, ripping, not comparing. And guess what you get? Like all those hearts coming up? Relational confetti. So that piece is Art or whoever, I'm going to go, or friend, I'm not going to talk right now. I need some space from what we talked about on the phone the other day. I want some space. I will circle back. And we, in the amygdala of the brain where trauma and anger and hurt is stored, it takes 20 minutes for that amygdala to calm down. So you can say, try it in friendship or coupleship or with your kids. In COVID-19 quarantine especially, like don't be mean in the quarantine, right? Is I need to circle back. I need 20 minutes to let the amygdala of the brain calm down, then to come back and say, let's see if we can repair some of these rips. That's just announce what you're doing and you won't be stonewalling. Otherwise,
That's
you're just
so
ghosting
good.
people.
You know,
Huh?
if anybody is out there that that does TikTok, this is something that my kids in their 20s, they are just dancing all the time.
Yeah.
I think we need to come up with a TikTok like rap song. It's like, don't be mean in the quarantine, right?
Yo, told you
Yo,
she's the original IGOG right there.
Joel
Do that.
Muddamalle
I'll
is
look for it.
losing his mind right now because he knows when we study deep theology, I love to make up rap songs. And Leah Chabai, I know you could help do some really swaggy lyrics, right?
I
So
think Joel and Leah have just been tasked with said TikTok adventure experience.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So there's my challenge. I want a TikTok. Don't be mean in the quarantine.
That's
Yo,
right.
All right, perfect. All right, back to our regularly scheduled program.
We're back,
Amanda
ladies and
Bacon,
gentlemen.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
That's right.
Yes. My friend
So we
Amanda
covered the
is,
four horsemen. And again, I've said, that big piece that, it's simple. Jim has quotes, folks. I'm not going to try to give credit everywhere. A lot of my quotes are not from me. So God's the God of all wisdom. So, but if you take that simple thing, for every rip, there's a repair, look at it. I did one this week. This is not touting me, believe me, where I could tell I felt my wife was being distant. And if you want to read about me, Lisa, you said you didn't mind. My wife is Jessica. Jessica's, no apostrophe, Jessica's journalings, like your journalings, jessicasjournalings.com. Would someone please put that down in the comments? But she's blogged about what it's been like to live with me in the past, especially, and all like that. There's some good stuff there. Jessicasjournalings.com, my precious wife. But I thought, nope, something's, I'm up here doing counseling sessions, and I thought, there's a breach. So I went and said, can we talk? We have that commitment. And she said yes. And she just said, I'm really upset with all the hoarding groceries you've bought, that our pantry is full of freezers. I've got 2 coolers going. I left home at age 16. I've been on my own my whole life. It's like country boy will survive. So I've gone out and I overdid it with pretty much non-perishable items. And I said, I'll give them to homeless people seriously later or whatever. But I said, I want to hear you, because I wanted to be defensive, like really, and was a little bit. But I'm trying to provide for our family here. I really am. I'm working hard. And that can be me being a victim mode. Watch out for the victim triangle, right? So I said, what is it? I heard her out. She was very tender. She's very gracious toward me, as you, Lisa, you're one of those gracious people I know. My wife's very gracious, and she heard that. And I said, that's my trauma junk from the past of just, it's me surviving and going out. And a lot of it wasn't exactly the most healthy food. That's me being vulnerable. We ripped the repair. I didn't go to get rid of the food, and we'll go through and eat the food. But it's like, for me, I was like, wanted to be justified. So even for that, we call it circling back. You're there with a person, you think, dadgummit, it's there. They need to come to me and clean this up. And if they don't, maybe every now and then you be the better person and circle back and say, hey, friend, hey, husband or wife, I know things ain't cool right now. We need to talk. And think about the communion table. I know there were smaller churches in the New Testament. Hey, before y'all take the Lord's Supper, the Eucharist, before you do that, if there's stuff somebody's got against you or vice versa, go settle it. That's been addressed. So if you notice a rip with someone, Take the high road. Go take the road less traveled and go repair the rip, fix the breach.
That's so good. Yeah, I told earlier about how sometimes when I am in a conflict, I would rather prove that I'm right. But what the Lord really has been teaching me for years now is to ask myself this question: Lysa, do you really want to prove that you're right, or do you want to improve this relationship? Because you can't do both at the same time.
I love that.
So, Jim,
That's almost like, if I can borrow that and color commentate, this is your quote, but I'm going to do my version of it. In that moment, it's corny ahead, maybe. It's biblical, at least. Do I want to be right, or do I want to be righteous?
Yep.
Not self-righteous. Do I want to be right in this world where there's a lot of, we're right and you're wrong and this black and white, but do I want to be right, or what I want to be righteous? So, yeah.
That's so good. Okay, so let's get back to this fight right contract.
Contract,
Right?
yeah.
Okay, so instead of coming out swinging, we're going to go to the person and we're going to say, do you have it to give for us to talk about something right now?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say the person says yes. And what other advice do you have so that we can have productive conversations rather than just all out fight?
And everyone at home can do this. You can do it even with your kids. Certainly with a spouse or partner, you can do this. And that is, I'd use this thing called MCI. Again, not original with me. And it's very simple. First, the M is just to mirror. When someone says something, after a while, it feels like a Saturday Night Live skit. Like, are we supposed to do this? Is like some fake. Just practice it, okay? And that is this: to say, honey, what I just heard you say, your spouse or friend, loved one says something to you, to mirror that back and say, even yes, to teenage kids or to your kids, what I heard you say is, and you're literally mirroring back word for word. The C is clarify. Mirror is M. C is clarify, which is, I want to clarify. You say, I heard you just say, you're really mad at me about the yard. Mm-hmm. Do I have that right? And that's the kicker. Say, honey, or friend, kid, do I have that right? No, that's not what I'm mad about. Remember, the number one thing you fight over is nothing at all. C, clarify. Okay, help me understand versus, I'll never get it right with you, contempt. Help me understand. I'd like to clarify. What is it that you're saying? I'd like to listen again. They say it. Mirroring, try to mirror back the word for word. I heard you say that you're mad about blah, 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 whatever it is. Do I have that right? Yes, that is right. Now we are, if communication is com means with, union means together, communication is union with, this is not communication. So yes, now we're on the same page. We're on the same channel.
Okay, that's so mirroring and then clarify.
Then clarify, do I have that right? No. Then tell me again. And then I is where a lot of people jump fast to, is interpretation. Well, I know why you're saying that. It's just your time of the month. I'm sorry, I've heard those things. Or I know why you're just saying that is because you're just mad because so-and-so the other day. Or what? It's like we're interpreting. After you mirror, then clarify, and then the interpretation say, I know you were talking about something the other day that your back's been hurting, or you're really scared about our finances. And is that in there some too? Wow. And that's where you're trying to interpret and say, is to be, again, curious, not furious, to be compassion, calm with passion, to suffer. We're in that week right now, the Good Friday, to suffer with and say, let me enter in what I call relational incarnation. Let me try to incarnate and say, oh, this is what it feels like to be you. You just try.
Right.
So mirror, clarify, interpret.
Okay, that is so good, Jim. And so basically, let me just mirror back to you some of the major points that you have covered. So the 4 things that we need to avoid are criticism, defensiveness. What was the third one?
Contempt.
And
your favorite.
Yeah, what is the favorite one?
Stonewalling.
Well,
you said it was.
That's right. Okay, so those are the 4 things that we're going to avoid.
The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse is what Gottman called them, right?
Perfect. And then the 3 things that we are going to try to implement after we say, is this a good time for us to sit down and talk about something? Do you have it to give right now? Then we do mirroring, clarification, and
interpret. And try to think. Okay. Think a little deeper. Like I wonder if this also is going on. But you're in a spirit of Brene Brown says when you're connecting with a person, you can only, in all her research, you can only be in empathy or judgment. And empathy doesn't mean I know exactly how you feel. It's I'm trying to connect and say 3 words. Tell me more. Is there more? Help me understand. Or I'm in judgment of, yeah, right. You're only either going to be able to be in empathy or judgment in Brene Brown's research. And I think that's pretty important.
Okay, that's so good. You know, Jim, this week I got a bunch of questions
Yeah,
that I do want to spend the next few minutes. We're going to wrap this up in just a little bit, but I do want to get to a couple of the questions because I think they are really good. There were several questions about boundaries and how do we keep boundaries right now when it seems like we are so boundaried externally by all of the necessary precautions that we have to take to protect our physical safety with COVID-19, that I think being in a close environment, boundaries can sometimes feel like it's not loving, or that that we're trying to shove people away. But what I always say is boundaries are not to shove someone else away. They're to
that's right.
hold me together, right? So I think first of all, as we talk about appropriate boundaries, and it can be challenging when we're sheltering in place like this, but I would love to have you give us a couple of examples of how to draw appropriate boundaries right now, how to communicate them.
Sure.
Because again, the reason we need boundaries is so that we can hold ourselves together. And so give us some examples of that.
Well, boundaries, as you've said this well, I mean, boundaries are to keep me safe. They're not to manage another person. Walls push people out. Boundaries are to keep me safe. You today, all of you watching, are in charge of your own self-care. So you got to assess, what do I need? What do I do? Jesus was a very boundaried person. So part of it, let me just be global and make sure I'm going to address what you're after there, Lysa, is we've gone again. We're talking a lot about external social distancing, and very little is being said about what I'm calling internal social distancing. We're talking about at home, overtly that relational claustrophobic, that give everybody a pass here. I just need some space. Every Enneagram number, every personality type, every person with a story, and you all got one, we handle space differently. So some people, a classic example, will come up and they'll say, don't you know I'm a hugger? And I say, no, you're actually a huggy. You're this. Can I give you a hug? And oxytocin's the bonding chemical. So what we're after is, in that moment, is we're really saying, I want to, Jim says, I want to steal little hits of oxytocin. Can I get a hug? So some people can be there in COVID-19 quarantine, and somebody could come up without asking, like simple things like, you're all right if I give you a hug, or they're just touching, and people have jerked or whatever. It's like, honor the space between I'm me, you're you.
Yes,
Honor the
preach
space.
Yes, because do you know this about me, Jim? I'm an awkward hugger. Do you know that?
I've had awkward hugs from you. No, I'm kidding. When I've come over, I didn't mean it that way, folks. No, you're a very boundaried approach. You are not going to, like, I remember doing therapy and theology, which I hope we do more of those. And you're not an enveloper. It feels very safe and boundaried when you hug. It's like, this is a person that understands good boundaries. You're not going to envelop, because there are people, women, men, hug, and it's like, dude, let me go. Please.
Yes. No.
Invasive.
Okay. So really quick, we're going to take just a little funny break, and then we're going to get back to this because I want to keep this discussion going. But seriously, I have hugging trauma. I really do.
Sure.
Because I was backstage at an event one time, and there was a pastor. I think I've told you the story before. And he's very tall, and he's a larger man. And he was coming toward me, and I could tell that he was about to introduce himself. And so I stuck out my hand right as he went to hug me, and it forced my hand in a place that my hand was not planning to go. I was
Jesus, take the wheel.
I was so shocked. I didn't know. It was one of those horrible moments where I didn't know what to say. And my publisher was with me, and as we were walking away, my publisher said, well, that went well. And I thought I was going to die. It was awful. Thank you, Leah Chabai, for saying that's your favorite story ever. That's terrible that that's your favorite story ever.
We'll have video on that tonight. Video at 6, so you can watch that. That'll follow this. Apparently, there was no video of that.
No, sir. Okay, so we need to communicate our need for boundaries, but again, it's not at all to control or manipulate or to force other people to do something. It's so that we can be held together. And so, Jim, I love what you said. Just communicating, I need a little space, or I need to let you know that I need an hour to go be by myself, or I need an hour just to listen to some praise music. You know, Art has a boundary that I have learned to love. I didn't love it at first, but I've learned to love it. And that is when he senses a growth opportunity coming between us. That's code for fight. When he senses like a growth opportunity, that's what we've renamed.
Here comes progressive sanctification, and that really means, yeah.
So when he senses that there's conflict at hand between us, he will excuse himself. He'll go into the closet, and he calls it boxing it out with the Lord.
Oh.
And so he goes into the closet, and he says everything that he needs to say, and he says it out loud to the Lord. I know he's in there talking about me. That's why at first I didn't love this.
Do you ever listen in, or you don't?
What's that?
Have you tried to listen in to what he's talking to God about
No,
you?
I don't think I want to know.
Good for you. My goodness.
No, I don't think I want to know. No, I let him. I respect this boundary now. So he goes into the closet. He boxes it out with the Lord. And I asked him, I said, Art, how do you know how long to stay in the closet boxing it out with the Lord? And he said, until I'm ready to come out and be kind and compassionate in my communication with you. And that has really been incredible. That has been so helpful for us, because.
And he's telling you that, though. When's he telling you that, Lisa, as far as saying, that's what we're saying, is just deliver the goods. Say, honey, this is what I'm going to go do.
Yeah.
And say what you're not doing. I'm not over there. I'm not just going to be over there just murdering you in my heart, to use Jesus' words. I want to let you know I need some space. I am angry with you. Yeah. I'll go do my thing to process it, and always set the return date. That's part of this contract. I will return back in an hour, 30 minutes. It might be a day, and say, I need to have that in my own quarantine. I promise to circle back. In relation, basically, you're calling a timeout. Whoever with our couples or friendship, whoever calls the timeout, we ask that timeout caller to call the time back in and circle back and say, I will circle back and let me reconnect. Make sense?
Yes.
That's not stonewall.
And do you tell the time, like, okay, I need 30 minutes, I need an hour, right?
Well, based on that amygdala, I do my own little thing I made up. So the brain research, it takes 20 minutes for that amygdala to calm down, where trauma and anger are stored.
Oh, that's
circle back.
Okay.
Circle back in like literal 20 minutes. I will be there. If you can telegraph your moves in a conflict, I'm going to go out and take a walk. 4 ounces of water can help lower anxiety. I'm going to I'm going to make a phone call to whoever, and I need 20 minutes, and I promise to circle back to where? This very place, in this chair where we are, to come back. If you're still arced up, either or both, then wait 1 hour. So you got 20 minutes. Next one is 1 hour. 1 hour, circle, come back and say, let's see if we can eat something. Seriously, make sure the blood sugar levels are there. Pray, do whatever you need to do. In 1 hour, if it doesn't get, say, we're going to bookmark it again, and I'll come back in 24 hours, one day, to see, you pray, think, get some space, sleep. I'm not rejecting you. I'm not going to bed just mad and shutting you out. One full 24-hour period. If we can't, the next one is call a therapist.
So seriously, 4 ounces of water can lower anxiety?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's been shown. I have my own anxiety struggles.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's that much of just helping with anxiety, with my own anxiety struggles.
Okay,
but that's a piece just to do things for self-care.
That's amazing. Leah, I see that you asked a really good question, but it disappeared before I got to it. So Leah, if you'll ask your question again, I'll make sure to get this in front of Jim. But
I can't. I'm looking. I can't see it. Was it on the screen?
It came on the screen, but she'll type it in again, so it'll be great. So one thing I love to do is I have a record player, and I bought this record player because I love putting a record on, And I will just, if I can just listen to 20 minutes of music and just seriously like just sing or just, and this is torturous to the people I live with sometimes, but if I, okay, here's Leah's question. If someone says they will circle back and they don't, should we revisit or re-engage with them on it?
Well, my thought on that is, I get Lee's question, is yes, but maybe one time, because otherwise that could be in a victim, in the victim triangle that you and I have talked about many times. Someone's in a victim place, and if they're in a victim place, they'll only allow somebody to be their rescuer, baby me, rescue me, pet me, be codependent, or you're their perpetrator. So if someone says, I will circle back, that's why this is a contract, especially in a marriage. We agree. I have couples write it down and they sign it, put it in the pantry or somewhere. They both say, we've agreed to these rules. So with that would be, there's someone, they say, I will circle back, and they don't. For me, I think it would be worthy of, if they said they'd be back in a half hour, then wait an hour or two and circle back and say, I'm coming to ask. You said you were going to circle back. I'd like to know, are you planning to do that? Not,
That's
or did
good.
you forgot? But are you planning? And because some people will play, well, a few people in life wouldn't they play games?
Okay.
They'll play games, and it's like, and they're wanting you to come after them. Now we're in a game. That's obviously a breach. That's a
Okay.
game playing tactic.
That's
Narcissists are known for
amazing.
that.
This is such good advice. I really, really appreciate it, Jim. A couple of people are saying they need a little bit more information. Circle back means what to you?
We're here. We're in a conflict. One or the other or both at the same time moves away. What happens in vagueness stays in vagueness. Relationally, what happens in vagueness stays in vagueness. It's carbon monoxide. It's colorless, odorless, tasteless gas that will kill. Nobody's talking. So what it is, or for me, like, or if I did something, I was a jerk or did, I want to realize sometimes the Holy Spirit, it happens a lot for me, will be, that was not right what you did. I did it with my wife today. It's simple. She was doing a thing, and in case other people are watching, when she leads a ladies group profoundly, and she was doing something, and I kind of made fun. I don't want you going out in COVID-19 to do something very safe. And so I called her. I'm up here in her prayer room. She was downstairs, had a session coming up, and I called her and said, babe, I was kind of joking and kind of sarcastic. I know you're safe to go out. This is such a precious thing. You lead your women's group so strongly. And here, and I said, I don't want to treat you that way. And she was great. She said, it's all right, babe, fine. I circled back. I didn't care whether she thought I was a breach or ripped something. I knew I did. I thought, Jen, that's just, that's the jerk. Sorry. I mean, just, no, that's not, I used to be that way so much. I don't want to be that guy. So I called her up. I'm aware when I need to, don't make it about the other person. To everyone watching today, if you feel like, I know there's a breach, I need to circle back, then just do that. Even if it's 5 weeks later, you know what? I was rude to my child. I need to circle back and say, you know what? And then please don't say, I was really upset with you, and how I treated you was wrong. That was wrong. Now, you kind of provoked me to that. Please don't do that. You come back and make the amends. You repair it and say, I own my sin, even to my child. Say, that I don't want to treat you that way, and I'm sorry. Then do the impact. Lisa, we've talked a lot about fact and impact.
Yeah.
And say, how'd you feel, or how did it make you feel when I treated you that way? I just did that with my 21-year-old daughter this week. And I said, she was asking me about something important. I said, I felt like I was just dad protector mode. And she said, no, Daddy, you were fine. I said, I need to say this for me. And she was so gracious. I said, I don't want to talk that way. I was a little overbearing.
That's
so you circle. That just means it's never too late to circle back and go, you know what? I helped people in the office circle back for years. I'll go, December of 5 years ago, something went down. You've never owned it. And I go back and do an inventory and say, you know what? I want to go back and clear that up and say, that's hurt me, and you never made amends for that. So we go back and do it. Just go back and do it. That's all circling back means.
Well, Jim, we only got to one of our questions. So I'm just going to ask, maybe we can do this again, maybe even next week. Maybe for a while we can just have like counseling sessions with Jim online. Would everybody like that? If you'd like that, give us a little heart, and that'll be amazing. Jim, how do people find you? What's your website?
Just JIMCRESS.com. If somebody wants to type that down there. I see several of you that I know. I can't say hi to all of you down there in the feed, including my sisters and others who are watching, but just JIMCRESS.com. And that's the simplest way to do it. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. Jim, this has been so helpful.